Good morning, students. We started from your Vistas book the chapter The Enemy last week. We've read that it is a thought provoking story which highlights how a doctor's duty as a trained medical practitioner towards a patient makes him rise above narrow national prejudice. Now, let's continue with the line by line explanation of the chapter. This man, he thought, there's no reason under heaven why he should live. So Dr. Sadao is working on this patient, or we can say American POW, trying to save him or take the bullet out from his back. And he starts wondering that this man, that is this enemy, the American enemy, there's no reason under heaven why he should live. That is, there was no reason for him to make efforts to save the man, because there was no reason for him to live. First, it would be a question on doctor's skill or ability if he is not able to save him. And to add to it, if it is located that a POW is sheltered in their house, they would be arrested. And if he lives also, survives also, then he'll meet his death when he would be handed over to the Japanese army. So the doctor finds no reason why he should live. Unconsciously, this thought made him ruthless, and he proceeded swiftly. And his thinking is lost in his thoughts. Though his hands are working simultaneously, he became merciless, and his hands are moving fast. In his dream, the man moaned, but Sadao paid no heed except to mutter at him. Now, this man, this unconscious person, is moaning, and Sadao pays no heed to the cry of this person. Groan, he muttered, groan if you like. I'm not doing this for my own pleasure. In fact, I do not know why I'm doing it. So Dr. Sadao says that if you want to cry, cry. And this he mutters to the unconscious patient, and he says that wonder why am I trying to do this? Though you are my enemy, the countries are at war, and I am not doing it for my own pleasure. And he says, I'm not even know why I'm trying to save you. And he says that he does not pay attention to his moaning, and he says, cry if you want to. The door opened, and there was Hannah again. So the door opens and Hannah returns. Where is the anesthetic? She asked in a clear voice. So she questions her husband, where is anesthetic? And this time she had a clear voice, that is, she's not troubled. She's ready to help her husband while the operation would be going on. Sadao motioned with his chin. It is as well that you came back, he said. This fellow is beginning to stir. So Sadao indicates where the anesthetic was, and was relieved that the wife is back, as the fellow, that is this enemy soldier, was beginning to move. She had the bottle and some cotton in her hand. But how shall I do it? She asked. So she had this bottle and cotton, and she asked instructions from her husband that how she should be giving anesthetic to the person. Simply saturate the cotton and hold it near his nostrils, Sadao replied without delaying for one moment the intricate detail of his work. When he breathes badly, move it away a little. So Sadao, who is all into doing operation and is working on the complex minor detailings of the operation, he tells Hannah that she needs to saturate the cotton, that is to saturate the cotton with the bottle stuff, and she has to hold that cotton near the nostrils of the unconscious person. And if the person breathes badly, then she has to relax this cotton, that is, she has to move this cotton away. She crouched close to the sleeping face of the young American. So Hannah sits or squats close to the person, and this person is sleeping. And who is this person? This person is this American prisoner or an American soldier. It was a piteously thin face, she thought, and the lips were twisted. So she notices that the face was very thin and he had twisted lips. The man was suffering whether he knew it or not. So this person was suffering, though he does not know this, as he was unconscious. Watching him, she wondered if the stories they heard sometimes of the sufferings of prisoners were true. So she notices this American POW, and she wonders whether the stories that they have heard, that the prisoners of war, the captives, they are tortured badly. So she starts wondering whether these stories are true or untrue. They came like flickers of rumor told by word of mouth and always contradicted. So she was wondering about these rumors, whether they were these were rumors, and these stories were heard irregularly, and these stories were heard verbally, that is word of mouth, and though there was a contradiction when these stories were heard. In the newspapers, the reports were always that wherever the Japanese armies went, the people received them gladly with joys, cries of joy at their liberation. So the print media used to report what? That wherever the Japanese army is going, they are being victorious, and the people are happy with their liberation as they are released and they are free. So there is a cry of joy at the freedom. But sometimes she remembered such men as General Takima, who at home beat his wife cruelly, though no one mentioned it now that he had fought so victorious a battle in Manchuria. So she wonders about these stories, whether these stories are true or false, and she starts remembering about General Takima, that he is so cruel to his wife. He beats his wife, but then no print media or other media talks about the same, about his cruelty. Why? Because he has won laurels by making. He has won a victorious battle in Manchuria. So nobody talks of this, his cruelty. If a man like that could be so cruel to a woman in his power, would he not be cruel to one like this, for instance? So she starts wondering, she's noticing this young unconscious POW, and she's wondering, and she's being sympathetic and sad seeing him, and wondering that such a person like General Takima, if he can be cruel to his wife, what would he do, and how cruel or ruthless he would be with a American, with a soldier, with a enemy soldier. She hoped anxiously that this young man had not been tortured. So she is hoping that this young man, has not been tortured by the Japanese army. It was at this moment that she observed deep red scars on his neck just under the ear. So she notices under the ear scars, red scars. So some injury marks might be there. So she notices this. Those scars, she murmured, lifting her eyes to Sadao. So she is trying to tell Sadao or indicate Sadao about the scars, the injuries under the ear. But he did not answer. To this, Sadao did not answer. At this moment, he felt the tip of his instrument strike against something hard, dangerously near the kidney. So, at this moment, when Hana indicates him about the scars under the neck, Sadao was all engrossed in trying to locate the bullet. So, at this moment, he did not answer Hana, and he notices what? That the edge of his instrument strike against something hard, and he felt that it might be a bullet. So it was very close to, near to the kidney. All thoughts left him, so he just started concentrating, though he was already concentrating, but then all other thoughts left him, so he did not, that is the reason he did not respond to Hana. He felt only the purest pleasure, and he felt only the pleasure of saving a patient, and the pleasure to locate that bullet. He probed with his fingers delicately, so very softly and delicately he's trying to see the wound with his fingers and trying to locate that bullet. Familiar with every atom to of his human body, of this human body, so he is very much familiar to human body, and with delicately with his fingers he's softly moving his hands to check that wound. His old American professor of anatomy had seen to that knowledge. Ignorance of the human body is the surgeon's cardinal sin, sirs. He had thundered at his classes year after year. So, his American professor of anatomy used to teach in the class very often, every year, every batch, that if a surgeon does not know, if he is ignorant, if he does not have the knowledge of any part of the human body, it was as if he is doing a major fault, as if he is doing some misdeed. He is committing some misdeed to operate without as complete knowledge of the body as if you had made it anything less than that is murder. So the American professor of anatomy used to teach his classes often that if a person is operating upon a human body and is not having a knowledge of that body, then that person is no less committing a sin, he is committing a murder, he might kill the patient. So he used to say to his students that they should know about the human body as if it was their body, as if they themselves have made it. It is not quite at the kidney, my friend, Sadao murmured. It was his habit to murmur to the patient when he forgot himself in an operation. So Sadao was operating and he thought that he has located the bullet. He is checking with his hands, his fingers, and he says that it is not quite at the kidney. That is, the bullet has missed the kidney. And he says that it was his habit to murmur to the patient when he forgot himself in an operation. So he's so involved in operation or engrossed in saving a patient and trying to locate that bullet that he forgot that this time this enemy was, he had the habit of calling his patients as his friend. My friend, he always called his patients, and so now he did, forgetting that this was his enemy. So he had a habit of addressing his patients as my friend, but then he was so lost in operation, so lost in saving the person, that he forgot that this time this was not his friend but it was his enemy, the country's enemy. Then quickly, with the cleanest and most precise of incisions, the bullet was out. So Sadao makes certain surgical cuts and he takes out the bullet. The man quivered, but he was still unconscious, though. So the man trembled in pain, but then he was unconscious. Nevertheless, he muttered a few English words. Guts, he muttered, choking. They got my guts. So this person, this American POW, he expresses his pain in unconscious, though he is unconscious, but then he expresses his pain. He mutters, say guts, and he says that they got my guts, and he had so much pain that he felt as if his some internal organ has been taken out. But then this is all when he is unconscious, and the pain he feels, he says these words. Sadao cried. Hannah cried sharply. Hush, Sadao said. So Hannah, the minute this American enemy soldier, he speaks guts, they got my guts, Hannah shouted, and then Sadao asked her to be quiet. The man sank again into silence so profound that Sadao took up his wrist, hating the touch of it. Now this person, this American enemy soldier, he went unconscious. He was so quiet, he was so silent, he was so quiet stillness that the Sadao has to take up his wrist to check that the man is living, he is alive. But then he did not like the touch of it. Yes, there was still a pulse, so faint, so feeble, but enough if he wanted the man to live, to give hope. But then he notices, he checks his wrist, and he realizes that yes, the pulse was faint, it was weak, but then it was sufficient for this man to live, to survive. But certainly, I do not want this man to live, he thought. But then he thought that he does not want his enemy to live. No more anesthetic, he told Hannah. So he instructs Hannah that now anesthetic is not required anymore. He turned as swiftly as though he had never paused, and from his medicines he chose a small vial and from it filled a hypodermic and thrust it into the patient's left arm. So he very swiftly he moves quickly, and he's not stopping and continuously working on one or the other thing. He goes and he checks from his medicine things and all. He checks one bottle, and from it he takes that syringe. He fills that syringe and places or thrust it into the patient's left arm. Then putting down the needle, he took the man's wrist again. So he just leaves the needle and just checks on the wrist of the man. The pulse under his finger fluttered once or twice and then grew stronger. So he felt the pulse shivered, there were some motion, some movement, and then he knew, and then he understood that yes, it has improved. This man will live in spite of all, he said to Hannah and sighed. So he announces to Hannah that in spite of all, in spite of he being hit with a bullet, in spite of the rocks reopening his wound, in spite of him doing an operation and saving him and getting that bullet out, in spite of everything, this man has lived and will survive. The young man woke, so weak, his blue eyes so terrified, when he perceived where he was, that Hannah felt compelled to apologize. So, this young American soldier, the enemy soldier, came out of his unconsciousness, and when he woke, he was very weak. His blue eyes so terrified when he perceived that where he was. So when he realized that he is in some Japanese home, his blue eyes were full of fear. He was terrified, and Hannah was compelled to feel sorry for the person. She herself served him, for none of the servants would enter the room. So the servants altogether ignored or altogether denied giving their services to this American enemy. So Hannah had to serve the enemy soldier herself. When she came in the first time, she saw him summon his small strength to be prepared for some fearful thing. So, when Hannah came in for the first time after he woke up, Hannah saw that this person was frightened. This young American soldier was frightened, and he was gathering strength as if some fearful thing might happen. Don't be afraid, she begged him softly. So she says that you need not be afraid. How come you speak English? He gasped. So he was amazed, he was astonished that the lady is speaking in English. I was a long time in America, she replied. So Hannah told that she had been in America for a pretty time, a long time. She saw that he wanted to reply to that, but he could not. So she felt that he wanted to say further something, but then he didn't. Maybe because he was weak, or maybe he didn't find it important to speak. And so she knelt and fed him gently from the porcelain spoon. So she sits down and she starts feeding him from the spoon. He ate unwillingly, but still he ate. Now, this enemy soldier was also not willing to eat, but then he was weak, he did not have strength, so he had to eat. Now, you will soon be strong, she said, not liking him and yet moved to comfort him. Now, though this is an enemy, this is an enemy soldier, she does not like him at all, he is an enemy. But then to comfort him, to console him, she says that he is going to be strong, soon he is going to be strong and he is going to be good. When Sadao came in the third day after the operation, he found the young man sitting up, his face bloodless with the effort. So, after the third day of the operation, Sadao visits this young man, that is an American enemy, and he sees that his face was all pale and weak due to the effort that he was making. And what effort he was making? He was making an effort to sit. Lie down, Sadao cried. Do you want to die? So Sadao shouts on him that you wish to die or what? You lie down. He forced the man down gently and strongly and examined the wound. You may kill yourself if you do this. You do this sort of a thing. He scolded. So Sadao scolded him. He first does what? He forces the person to lie down in his bed, and then he starts investigating the wound that he had operated on, and then he shouts and he scolds him that you want to kill yourself, or you, with such sort of a thing, that is making an effort to sit or trying to stress yourself. What are you going to do with me? The boy muttered. So the boy questions, what are you going to do with me? He looked just now barely 17. Are you going to hand me over? So the look of him shows that it seemed that he was nearly 17 years old. And then he questions Dr. Sadao, are you going to hand me over? That are you going to hand me to the Japanese army? For a moment, Sadao did not answer. He finished his examination and then pulled the silk quilt over the man. So Sadao did not answer him instantly. He finished with his examination and investigating the wound and just checking on the wound and things. And then he asked the person to lie down and he places the quilt on the person. I do not know, Marshal, what I shall do with you, he said. I ought, of course, to give you to the police. You are a prisoner of war. No, do not tell me anything. So Sadao, now after doing the examination and just checking on the wounds and everything, he says, I do not know what I am going to do of you. But then I know that you are a prisoner of war, and I should actually hand you to the police. But then he notices that this young person might wanted to say something or what, so he instructed him, no, do not tell me anything. He put up his hand as he saw the young man was about to speak. So when he notices this young man wanted to say or interrupt Dr. Sadao while he is speaking, so he indicates him to stop, and he says that I do not want to hear anything from you. Do not even tell me your name unless I ask you. In fact, he does not want him to tell any of his identity about his name or anything unless Dr. Sadao himself wants to know the same. They looked at each other for a moment, and then the young man closed his eyes and turned his face to the wall. Okay, he whispered, his mouth a bit alone. So both the person, that is the young man, and Dr. Sadao exchanged glances with each other, and then this young man closed his eyes and he turns his face towards the wall, and he felt bitter and unpleasant by Dr. Sadao's words.